Hello there. So the system has decided he's waited long enough and has handed Tony Blair his gong for services to the nation. Well, that one stirred the hornet's nest, didn't it? But even though it's 14 years since he left office, Tony Blair is still hated by many in the country. Yes, Anthony Charles Linton Blair, and I use one of his middle names for a well-known reason, has been awarded the honour of becoming a Knight Companion of the Most Noble Order of the Garter. And Britannica.com describes this order as the English Order of Knighthood, founded by King Edward III in 1348, ranked as the highest British civil and military honour obtainable. And not unexpectedly, this has been met with universal disapproval, although the word disapproval might be underplaying it just a tad. Now, all the reasons for many people being upset about this award have been well played out in the press. But it is Blair's involvement in wars that is highest up the hate list. From it being a kick in the teeth to the people of Iraq and Afghanistan, to disrespect for the relatives of all the UK servicemen killed and wounded in those conflicts. And military mothers have come out and called it the ultimate insult, with reports coming out that many will be returning their Elizabeth crosses, which are given to bereaved families. And one person tweeted on release of the news that Dr. Kelly was no longer available for comment. And a petition was launched by Angus Scott on the .gov website against this award that has already got 100,000 signatures. In the explanation part of the petition, Mr. Scott said, Tony Blair caused irreparable damage to both the Constitution of the United Kingdom and to the very fabric of the nation's society. He was personally responsible for causing the death of countless innocent civilian lives and servicemen in various conflicts. For this alone, he should be held accountable for war crimes. Well, just shows what can happen when you follow a dodgy dossier. These days they call it following the science, but I digress. So PFI debts, selling off gold, wars and the like, all good stuff for a belated knighthood it seems. But these honours are a bit of a conveyor belt for those with the right jobs. And him not being given a knighthood was holding up the next on the belt, so causing a bit of a backlog of unrewarded Prime Ministers. Something that the current Speaker of the House of Commons, Lindsay Hoyle, seemed to recognise, as he called for all remaining living former Prime Ministers to be quickly knighted too. With his argument being that it's not about the politics, it's due only to the fact that they held that position. Then maybe we can get on to a peerage for the former Speaker John Bercow, just because he held a position that normally ends up with a peerage. So that Hoyle's peerage isn't held up in a backlog too. After all, Sir Lindsay already has his knighthood. But why this long wait for Blair to get his award? Was the establishment hoping the dust would have settled by now? Or are the stories about the tension between Blair and the palace true? Because as I understand it, this is one honour that is still in the gift of the monarch herself, nothing to do with the government or Prime Minister of the day. And these are also normally handed out on April the 23rd, St George's Day. And all this has led to speculation that the Queen is looking to clear the decks of problems like this before her time as monarch ends, for whatever reason, and not leave it to her successor to have to tidy up. Or is it because everyone's so delighted that he's managed to embed his team of Blair Institute advisors in governments across the world? And now there are increased calls for the whole honours system to be scrapped on the basis of cronyism and getting a gong just for the job you do. Although at the lower end of the honours system there are many deserving awardees. But it won't matter how we arrange such a system, either by changing its name, taking the word empire out of it, or scrapping and reinventing the whole system. It will always come back to one set of people handing out gongs to another set of people for service to something. So nepotism, chumocracy and it's my turn next will always triumph, as will the drive to use such awards to push a particular in vogue lefty political narrative. But it's just so depressing that this is all so blatantly obvious these days. There's just no attempt to disguise this bias at the higher end of the lists. Or maybe Boris Johnson is behind the Blair knighthood issue, because he wants to make sure that he gets to pick up his knighthood immediately after he gets ejected from number 10 by his party. Something that might come sooner rather than later. But before I get onto that, I just want to say a massive thank you to all my Super Thanks, Patreon and PayPal supporters, as well as those that do buy a mug with my mug on it. Links in the descriptions box below. You really do help me keep this channel going. Well, the Tories have started 2022 14 points behind Labour in their recently won red wall seats, and also 5 points adrift across the country. And if replicated in a general election, it would see the Conservatives lose about 100 seats. That would see Keir Starmer into number 10, but would not give Labour a clear majority. However, the Lib Dems would doubtlessly be on hand to assist, the price tag being re-entry into the EU, of course. The actual numbers in the Daily Mail poll are, in the 57 red wall seats, Labour on 49% and the Tories trailing far behind on 33%. While across the country, Labour are on 40% and the Tories hanging back on 35%. And those red wall voters put Keir Starmer at 38% as best potential PM and Boris 5 points behind on only 33%. Now, the next UK general election is due to take place on the 2nd of May 2024. That's less than 2.5 years away. So the point is being reached where the Tory party has to make a choice of whether to stick with Boris Johnson as their leader and Prime Minister or oust him and give a newcomer a chance to bed in and make a positive impact prior to that election. And as I've said before, these poll ratings won't embolden the party to take their previous dream option of an early election once the Fixed-Term Parliament Act is repealed. Unless there's a massive change somewhere, I think May 2024 is the next general election. So this has the Tory backbenchers scratching their heads and wondering whether or not to get those 54 letters of no confidence in Boris into the in-tray of the Tory backbench 1922 committee chairman Sir Graham Brady. Something that would trigger a vote of no confidence in Boris as Tory leader. And if he lost that, a Tory party leadership battle would ensue, and a change of prime ministership could ensue too. Now, the party will hope that they can come up with one unopposed candidate to be crowned in a symbolic act of party unity, should that happen. But I'm not sure some of those in play could hold their egos back. In my view, Boris can only save his day by ditching the English Channel red carpet, 28,000 this year alone, remember. Also by putting his wife's green agenda on hold so as to reduce household fuel bills, then getting taxes down instead of ramping them up, and not falling for this idea of health-based mandatory ID cards and the like. And writing in the Telegraph today, Nigel Farage points to the Brexit failings of Boris and asks if the Tory backbenchers have the courage to act in 2022 and ensure that a character of Thatcher-style determination is put at the helm of the country to see it through properly. Sounds to me like Farage is also angling for a regime change. But who would his Thatcher-style choice be from within the current Tory lineup? And finally, one of the main drivers, if not the main driver, for the NHS being so under pressure at the moment is that so many of its staff are off ill at the moment. In England alone, over 110,000 of its nearly 990,000 staff were off over the new year. And that's over 11% of them. And nearly half of these, about 5% of the workforce at 50,000, were those being forced to self-isolate. But NHS bosses are worried that as this latest variant is much more transmissible, there is a worst-case scenario of 300,000, or nearly a third of the workforce, being off sick at any one time in the very near future. Wonder if they're using the Ferguson calculator for this one. Anyway, as a result of this, the Prime Minister has ordered for robust contingency plans to be drawn up to deal with it. It's therefore a very good job that they're not already enforcing the no dose, no employment rule, isn't it? So what's your opinion on Tony Blair and his new order of the Garter? Please like and comment below. Please subscribe and like this video, buy a mug and support me on Patreon or PayPal, and thank you for watching.